Hey crawlers, Multiple Stiltskin here. It's been a little while, but we're back. So we just cleared the first level of the lair, and we're gonna go down to lair level 3. Or 2. I can count. I totally promise. I know how to count. So, some of the things that we probably want to happen for us soon, if we look at our inventory, we want an amulet that will help us out in some way. We also probably want to get some more armor slots. So like boots, gloves, those would help us. It would be pretty nice also to get a better weapon, but our weapon right now is not terrible. As far as our skills go, we're trying to get our shields up to 15 so that we don't have a penalty for using a shield anymore. And yeah, so that's what's going on right now. The lair is going to be kind of a step up in difficulty from the early dungeon, but it's still usually easier than deeper in the dungeon. So like after dungeon level 11, dungeon starts to get pretty dang spooky. We can see there's an elephant in our line of sight over here. And I'm slightly injured, not too injured, but I know that elephants come in packs. And so it's going to be way better for me not to risk things by just backing up a bit. And I'm going to let myself heal. And because I'm wearing heavy armor, he can kind of hear the sounds that I'm making. So it didn't take him that long to find us, but we did get to get some more health back. And he might be away from his pack now, which will make him safer to deal with. Oh, there's another little buddy that he has. So we'll just back up. You might have seen that there was a little question mark next to the elephant's head, and that's because he didn't know where we were. So if you see a little question mark like that, it either means they're confused or they can't see you. So just a little friendly tip there. Just like usual, we backed up a bit so that only one guy can attack us at a time. Elephants do actually have a chance to knock you back. So sometimes they can get you out of position, and that's pretty spooky when that happens. But, you know, fortunately, we do have a lot of AC for this point in the game. If you remember our plus 10 armor that we got, it's really kind of silly to have armor that strong so early. It doesn't usually happen. We're just separating this yak from his pack, from his yak pack, so that he can't yak back, because yaks are bad in large numbers. And they always come in large numbers. Oh, that is an electric eel, so we're gonna get away from the water. These river rats are not that scary, but they do come in very large numbers, and they're, I think, kind of fast. I don't remember for sure. Anyway, they're usually not too bad. They can swim. They're like New York City rats, I guess. I've only been to New York once, but I did see a rat one time. This Komodo dragon, I always underestimate them. And that reminds me of something that I should probably teach you, which is not actually a game mechanic, but it is the reason that I die almost every time I die. And it's the reason most people die. And that is a human fatal flaw many of us have: hubris, excessive pride. So you can be overconfident, and that will often lead to death. And so I think in this case, to be safe with a Komodo dragon, which is an enemy that hits very hard, I'm going to use heroism. And that'll just make me way better at fighting, and then I'm going to finish attacking him. We probably would have been able to kill him without that, but I think it was just less risky, and heroism costs us almost nothing. I should point out also that right now our invocation skill, so this one right here that I'm kind of flashing, is at 0. Invocations is the skill that helps you with many god abilities. It kind of depends on the god. Here's a Hydra. I'll finish talking about what I was talking about, and then we'll deal with him. So invocations helps you use god skills. Some gods need it more than others. Some don't need it at all. Okawaru does use invocations. So if we look at our 2 abilities, when we try to use heroism, we actually have a 6% chance to fail, and that's because we have 0 invocations. And we have a very high chance of failing with finesse, again, for the same reason. So if we want to be able to use those reliably, we need higher invocations. However, I kind of want shields first just to get rid of that penalty. We also want some fighting. So those are going to be the thing we focus on after we remove the penalty for shields. I couldn't say that this is like 100% the optimal way to do it, but I like to do it this way just because I don't like to have penalties to my attack speed and dodge and things like that. Okay, so a Hydra. This guy is gonna kill a lot of people, and the first time you see a Hydra, there's a decent chance he's gonna kill you too. So the thing about Hydras is that if you use any bladed weapon other than a short blade, so if you use like a longsword, if you use an axe, a bardich, you know, things that do slashing damage, if it's not flaming branded, it will cause the Hydra to grow more heads. And for every head it has, it gets another attack. That makes Hydras very scary. We're using flails, so we don't cause it to grow more heads, but an 8-headed Hydra is still nothing to trifle with. Having high armor will help us, but this is still a pretty spooky enemy. So what I think I want to do is back up a little first, just to get away from anything that might hear us. And then I'm going to wait a couple turns till he's closer, and then I'm going to use haste, just to give us that little buff there, so this fight will be a little easier for us. So you see, he hit us pretty hard all at once there. This may not actually be a good idea even with haste. We did manage it though. Now you can see there are some guys above us, some lindworms. Pretty sure these guys have a ranged attack. Yeah, they have fire breath. So we're gonna back up and just heal before we think about going over there. And looking at this little dungeon feature, it looks like it's a circle of lava. There might be some way to get on there. So we're gonna circle around and see if there's a way to get over there without flying. But we wanna do it safely out of range of their ranged attacks. So we'll just kind of circle around this way. There's a scroll here. We have a few sets of 2 scrolls, even 3. I'm gonna read those just so I know what they are. Scroll of noise, that's not usually good. Smoke, fog. A scroll of smoke is actually pretty nice. Actually, they're called scrolls of fog. So the way these work is if there are 2 tiles of fog between you and something, then it blocks line of sight. You can walk through it, but these can actually be really helpful if there's an enemy at long range just pelting you. You can use a scroll of fog and run away, and it will block their line of sight for a bit. So sometimes that's what you need to be able to get away. It can be pretty handy. Let's read some more scrolls. Scroll of fear is pretty useful. That will scare away guys around you, and it has a pretty good chance of working until late in the game. So very handy to have. It'll save you from many bad situations. Magic mapping. This is good if you arrive on a level and there's a hidden branch. Not really hidden, they're sort of like temporary branches, and you'll know because it'll give you some kind of flavor text. So for example, the sewer is one branch that you can run into, and when you arrive on that level, you'll see messages that pop up about a drain rusting near you. So they're little messages like that that just give you a hint that there's a level, and magic mapping will help you find where that is, because they do expire if you don't get to them quickly enough. Scroll of summoning is one of the best scrolls in the game, because it summons a ton of guys that are kind of from the branch that you're at, and that will usually help you a lot. So it's good that we have an extra one of those. Does not look like there is a way onto this lava island other than flying, but there might be stuff that we want over there. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and just use a potion of flight. This might be a waste, or even, ooh, that flame breath hit us really hard. You know what? Let's nix that plan. That hit us way harder than I wanted it to, so we're just gonna not deal with those at all. We're gonna go over here. We might think about coming back here later. I'm just gonna use E to set exclusion all around this, and this will keep auto explore from taking us over here. I don't really like how much damage that did. That is a 6-headed Hydra. It's a little less scary than the one we fought. Let's go ahead and use Heroism. Again, don't be scared to use your god abilities if you might need them. It's way better to burn a tiny amount of piety than it is to be dead. So always good to keep that in mind. And again, with pack animals like yaks, if you see one, it's usually a good idea to back up so that you don't have to fight the whole pack at once. If you find a little spot like this, sometimes they'll still circle around you, but it'll give you a lot of time to fight only one guy at a time. And if they're stupid enemies like yaks, then a lot of times they don't even know that they can circle around, and they'll just kind of come at you one at a time and die. Scroll of teleportation. Those are like the go-to way to escape from spooky situations. So pretty good thing to have those around. They're usually pretty common. I'm surprised that's our first one. That is an electric eel. We talked about those before. Just want to be kind of careful with him, but I think we can take him. A lot of times there's more than one electric eel in one place, and that's when you want to be especially careful with them, because their damage can pile up very quickly. Poor little elephant. Elephants have good memories and they mourn their dead, which only makes it worse for them when they get murdered. I don't feel bad at all. They had it coming. Black mambas. Black mambas are very fast. Wow, that was not the best positioning on my part. Black mambas are pretty dangerous to a lot of characters, especially characters that don't have poison resistance. They're hard to get away from. For us, they're not that scary. Okawaru just gave us these artifact boots, and I would like to have an ID scroll, but we don't, so I'm just going to wear them. Resist poison, intelligence boost, and a little bit of penalty to dex. Well, that's pretty good, because now we have poison resistance, and poison resistance is very helpful when you're in the lair, because there are a lot of enemies here that poison you, oddly enough. Like this guy right here, he can poison you. One thing that you can know about poison resistance is that it's not the same as being immune to poison. Oh, I don't like that. Anyway, you actually will still take about 25% poison damage when you have poison resistance. So, as you can see, we still got poisoned here, even though we're resistant to it. It just means we would have been way more poisoned if it weren't for having that. So, you know, it's good to have, definitely. And there are also branches that you kind of need poison resistance for, almost. So, like, if you get the snake pit or the spiders, spider nest, you'll get one of those two in every game. And they will pretty much destroy you if you don't have poison resistance, barring certain very unique situations. We just leveled up again. Since we're wearing plate armor, I kind of want to just go for strength, especially now that we have these boots that give us some intelligence. I think that's good. We're almost at 15 shields, so once we get there, then we're going to start leveling up other things. Probably I should have leveled up fighting and invocations a little earlier, but you know, at this point we're so close to 15 shields, why not just finish it off? Okay, so now we're going to turn that off. We're going to turn fighting and invocations on. Fighting becomes really, really important because that's the main way that you increase your health other than leveling up. And if you're a race that has higher base health, like a Minotaur, then it will give you even better boosts. So you definitely want to be leveling up fighting, even if you're not a melee class. If you're, say, a spellcaster, then you still probably want some fighting, even if you have a bad aptitude, because you need that health. We just got a Book of Air, and this has a spell called Repel Missiles. This is a spell that is useful for pretty much everyone, because it makes ranged attacks a lot harder to hit you. We just memorized it, even though it is definitely impossible for us to cast right now, and it will be for some time. It's a spell that I'll probably want to make castable eventually. And we could do that by having better armor skill, by wearing armor that is not quite so heavy, and by increasing our casting skills, obviously. This is another situation where I think it's probably worth it to just use Heroism. And you'll see, even though we only have 1 in Invocations, Heroism's fail rate already dropped from 6 to 1%, and Finesse dropped from like 61 to 50%. So a little goes a long way. We definitely want more for Finesse to be more reliable, but Okawaru doesn't demand a ton of Invocations. You really only need a little bit for Okawaru. Some other gods you benefit a lot more from Invocations. This Rhyme Drake that we just fought, you might have noticed that we had the Frozen status on. That status doesn't make you attack more slowly, but it makes your movement a lot slower. So if you're frozen, running away can be very dangerous. Something to keep in mind. And again, you'll see that I am almost never approaching enemies. I'm just kind of waiting for them to come to me. I want to attract as little attention as possible. And that's especially important since I'm even louder than normal. So I could attract a lot of attention just by walking around. with my plate armor and my lack of stealth. Enchant armor is a great scroll, and I think I'm going to put it on the cloak just because it's one of the few things I can put it on, and putting it on the cloak gives me more AC, putting it on the shield gives me more shield. I'm hoping that I can eventually replace this shield. Anyway, there's something that you should know about scrolls of enchant armor, and that is that you can take a dragon hide. So say I kill like a fire dragon. If you butcher it, you'll have a pretty good chance of getting a fire dragon hide. And if you use a scroll of enchant armor on that hide, it'll actually turn into fire dragon armor. And dragon armor tends to be very, very good. There are all kinds of different types, and they're good for different things, but it's something that you should know. You can even do that to trolls. You can get troll leather armor, which is a little better than regular leather armor and helps you regenerate. We still don't have a scroll of identify, so I'm going to risk putting on these boots. Slaying +5 boots. Wow, that's really good. Slay basically is like having that much more weapon enchantment. So it gives me 5 more accuracy and damage on every attack. And I'm kind of willing even to get rid of the poison resistance to have that slaying bonus for right now. That is a ton of slaying. Wow, they're throwing so many artifact boots at me. That's ridiculous. Well, let's try these on too. Resist fire. Wow. We just got a ton of really good boots all at once. I think we're gonna go with the slaying ones for now. Let's see, we still don't have an amulet, but here's an amulet here. Oh, there's a basilisk. So we don't have very good magic resistance right now, and that's what determines the chance of these kinds of spells hitting you. So he has a 40% chance of petrifying us, which is really bad. We definitely do not want to fight this guy if he's anywhere near other enemies. He does not hit that hard by himself, but if you get petrified and there's, say, like a Komodo dragon or a Hydra right next to you, you will almost definitely be a dead person, especially if you rely on evasion instead of armor. Because while you're petrified, you can't really evade. You're made out of stone, right? But your armor does still work. So be very careful around basilisks if you have bad magic resistance, and especially if they're near other guys. Anyway, we have this amulet now, but we still don't have a way to identify it, and there are some amulets that we could get that I just really don't want to put on. Like an amulet of harm, if I take it off, it will drain me. If I put on an amulet of faith and I take it off, it will reduce my piety by a lot. So I kind of just want to not put that on until I have an ID scroll. You might have noticed that I kind of ran away upstairs and brought that frog with me. That's because we saw a death yak. And death yaks are really scary guys, and I want to fight them with as few other guys around as possible. Death yaks hit very, very hard, and even though they sound silly, you should take them seriously because they will kill the shit out of you. Blink frogs can be pretty scary too. For our character's build and the stuff that we have, they're not actually that bad right now. I'm pretty sure there are more blink frogs up here because they usually come in packs. I could be wrong though. We killed a couple. It's unusual to only have a couple. Yeah, there's another one. There might be one more, but this could be it. It's good to know what enemies come in packs because again, you just want to fight the smallest number of guys at once as possible. It's just way less risky. And you can run into death yaks, which come in packs, and that is definitely not a pack that you want to fight, and definitely not out in the open where they can all hit you at once. A death yak will just ruin your whole day. There's a reason that they have red beady eyes and that they have a reputation for violence. They're not nice yaks. They're not your friendly garden variety yaks. Anyway, you'll see Lair's going pretty well for us. In part, that's because of our equipment. In part, that's because we're a strong background and race combination. But typically, once you get good at the game, unless you just have really bad luck, you'll almost always be able to make it to the bottom of Lair. Sometimes, negative things happen just by pure chance, or you made a silly mistake early on and you don't make it. But once you kind of know what you're doing, making it to the bottom of Lair is sort of like the minimum. I almost never die before I clear out Lair. I often die after that. And if I play kind of a sillier combination, sometimes I'll die before Lair. But Lair usually is pretty safe as long as you know what you're doing. So there are a lot of enemies in here that are not that scary, and there are a few that are. So the main thing is knowing what's scary and what's not. Like Death Yaks, these are scary. You can see one of these has a question mark next to it. So he does not actually see me. This guy does totally see me. So we're gonna go in the opposite direction as far away as possible, and hopefully the other yak won't know that we're here, and we can just fight this guy in peace. We were not so lucky, so we're gonna go find a hallway. And again, it might look like this fight's going really well. We still have to kill a bunch more, so I'm gonna use heroism to make it go even better. And you should also keep in mind that our character has better gear than average, than what most people would have at this point in the game. So you probably don't want to do this with a pack of Death Yaks. What I'm doing right now, don't try it at home unless you feel really confident. We just got a magic hat from Okawaru, a hat of magic resistance. That is one of the best things we could have had, because as a Minotaur we can't wear helmets, we can only wear hats, and magic resistance is pretty much always useful. He also gave us some Tomahawks of Returning. I'm not really sure we need those, but hey, he gave us a really good hat, so can't complain. We have an amulet, or sorry, a ring of resist corrosion, which means that these red jellies are less scary. The jellies have a chance of corroding you when they hit you, which gives you basically a penalty to your armor and slaying. So it makes you weaker at attacking, and it's easier to get hit and take damage. So getting corroded is really bad, and it can also stack up. But since we're resistant to it and we're pretty strong, they're not nearly as scary. Oh, we got some scrolls of Identify that I did not notice. So let's see what this amulet is. Faith. Don't want that. Our piety is already maxed out, and we probably will find a different amulet that we do want, and we don't want to have to take that off and lose piety. So we're going to leave that where it is. Seven-headed Hydra. We can take him. Yeah, so you'll see, since we got those slaying boots, that's making a really big difference for us. We are slaying like champions. And we're already in Lair 4, so we're just going to keep on going down. Some wolves. Wolves are fast. I am not playing the safest way here because I am so much stronger than them. But technically, if you were going to be smart, you could have backed up a little bit. It's fine. I think I'm actually going to go ahead and stop it here. So we made a lot of progress in the lair. If you have any questions, just like always, feel free to leave a comment. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time, crawlers.